Well, hello and welcome to Qlik Spotlight. This is Qlik Spotlight at the SKO 2019 in Barcelona. And I have the very great pleasure to introduce Joe DosSantos. Welcome, Joe. And welcome to Qlik, because how long have you been at Qlik for now?
It's about 30 days now.
30 days? You're an oldie then, aren't you?
Oh, wily veteran.
So your title is Global Head of Data Management Strategy. There's an acronym in there somewhere, I'm sure there is. So introduce yourself and also a bit about, where you came from before Qlik. Now, I know you worked at TD Bank, but we were chatting beforehand about some other experience you had before then.
That's
so
right.
Just explain a bit about that.
So let's start with the role right now. My role right now is the head of strategy for the data management product set, which is going to center around a data catalyst. So as we're trying to go to market, that's going to require some thought in terms of how the product will integrate with the broader Qlik stack, years out, how we develop sales collateral, partner enabling collateral, marketing collateral, and also some interface with some of the analysts and the community out in the world. So it's a broad range of roles that I'm here to help Paul Barth kind of spur some growth in that group. I come most recently from TD Bank. There's been a lot of chatter recently about the TD Bank case study. That was my group. Wow. We deployed Data Catalyst about 3 years ago, and we had about 200 applications with about 5,000 files flowing through our data lake and making it available. But before that, I come from a management consulting and software background, so I'm no stranger to helping salespeople sell their wares.
So your experience as a customer then,
correct?
Because especially in that side of product strategy, you had that experience. So if someone says, okay, we should go in this direction, you can actually say, well, no, I don't think that's what a customer would ask for. And is that what you see? That how you see your experience, that the other side of the fence, helping you out in this role now?
No, that's right. Because I think a lot of the things that we do can get trapped in technical speak.
Yeah.
And effectively, this is about context. A lot of what Data Catalyst is helping people to do is to reimagine how data is available. So for years and years, people have put data through these tortured ETL processes to make sure that there was only this one surviving answer. And in a world of AI and ML, like, people just want access to quick, raw now. And so fundamentally what we're trying to do is to get people faster. And really, that's what I love about the democratization of data message here. Yeah. It really underscores that. We're about helping data get potentially imperfect data now, as opposed to perfect data in 6 months. Yeah, I mean, what about the, hot off the press, the crunch bottom crunch data? Could you see that if you put your old customer hat on, could you see there being a need for that? Certainly. Yeah, I think that as you start to think about the way the life cycle of data, the first step is making sure you have the data. But shortly thereafter, you need the ability to get through it. Like, we all have this experience with Echoes and Amazons and Alexas at home, right? And effectively, that's where the world is going, where people want to ask simple questions to get simple answers. So it's pretty exciting.
It is exciting, isn't it? So, yeah, you had experience before, on the other side of the fence. But how long were you at TD Bank for?
3 years.
3 years. So have you found any big changes, or did you find the transition from TD Bank to Qlik? I know it's very early days, but has there been anything that stuck in your mind and thought, well, this is very different?
Well, I have to say the people around here are wonderful, and I found the warm welcome unbelievable. Everyone picks up the phone. It's a very face-to-face culture, lots of WebExes happening. So I've had no problem getting acclimated. It's interesting to me because my experience is probably backwards to most people. Most people have a strong BI background and come to sales kickoff to figure out about the new products. I know about a niche product, and I've been spending most of my time trying to figure out how Qlik more broadly thinks about analytics and data and how we should fit. So, but it's been great.
Yeah. So your experience in BI then is that's where you're going to need to really, drink from the fire hose, as they say, to get that going. Well, you'll have a lot of fun with that, because I must say, I've been at Qlik 11 years, and you never get tired. And I love the fact that it just changes the whole time. So at TD Bank, you're there for 3 years. Yep. How do you see the skills that you learnt from that role? How do you see those transitioning over to Qlik?
So first and foremost, I think you said it well, John, that it's about putting yourself in those customers' shoes. And as we start to think about the sales cycle, it's a different customer. So if you think about a BI consumer, in some respects, if you kind of think about those 3 steps of BI, the second stage was really a teaching all of the BI users to circumvent a slow, crumbling IT, right? How do we work around them? How do we build a connector, right? And so as we start to re-engage that conversation for the third, it's really about we need to start to go back to those data owners and explain to them how to satisfy their customers a little bit. I was that guy. I was the guy responsible for having that job, and I'm hoping to bring something to the sales force around how to tell that story, how it really is hard, and how to conceptualize that different, why an ETL tool doesn't make it work, and how to organize you can say data swamp, but what does that mean? How does it work, right? So I'm hoping to bring some credibility to that, and also to help the sales force tell the story and the experience, and that's how I think it'll apply.
Yeah, because the language that we use as a technology company, you automatically assume that everyone knows that language, don't you? So you have to be very careful the amount of acronyms you use and the way you converse with the customer and understand, the industry, etc.
That's right. I think part of what you're describing too is it's objection handling. So the idea of, we talk about democratization and data for everybody. If you work in a bank or probably in a healthcare system, that's not necessarily your primary interest, because losing one credit card could be, 5% share drop the next day.
Yeah.
So people have jobs affirmatively to resist data access. And so a lot of the story that we need to start to tell is about how in practical worlds can you really secure data. It's thoughtful data democratization. So we help people get the data they need. That doesn't mean everybody's tax IDs and credit card numbers. It means the data they need to do their business.
Yeah. And you brought up an interesting fact, actually. And I remember presenting at one of our tools not so long ago. And one of the aspects was around the role of IT changing and becoming a gatekeeper, not a gatekeeper, sorry, but someone who was there to give access to tools.
That's exactly right.
You mentioned that actually maybe that's not the case. So did you find at TD Bank that actually that wasn't the case, that they were a gatekeeper still?
So you said IT. It's funny that you use those phrases. The sales deck that's going to come out this week actually has a title that says "From Gatekeeper to Enabler."
There you are.
Right on the money there.
Yeah.
It's not so much what technology wants; it's the organizational construct. So at banks, you have an organization that does nothing but privacy considerations. Another one that's compliance, and people can always find good reasons buried in subsection 3 of whatever document to stop you from doing what it seems like a reasonable thing. So IT is willing. It's just a question of making sure that you can fit into the business policies. And I think that's what's so exciting about Catalyst. You literally just ask, well, what do you want to happen? If you tell me what you want to protect, we'll protect it.
Yeah.
So just tell me. And it's a business-oriented conversation around how to enable business data.
So, and this is a huge question, and we spoke about this already, but what is the future? Let's give an idea of where we've gone in my time at Qlik. We've gone to from the SQL databases to big data and big data in the cloud. Putting crystal ball on the table, where do you see the future of data?
So let me answer that in 2 ways. Let me get a technical answer first. There's a term that people use about data lakes that they call it polyglot. Polyglot, a multilingual data.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And effectively what that means is that different data structures perform better in different data structures. So Hadoop doesn't work for everything, and sometimes you need Hadoop, and sometimes you need Cassandra, and sometimes there are things that haven't been invented yet. Right?
Yeah.
And effectively, the way that we'll succeed is by being able to unify the different languages that are there for purpose. So if you think about some of the things that we've got introduced now, Data Catalyst can help you figure out where stuff is. Great, regardless of how it's stored. ABDI can help you get remote data sources where it is. So if you can speak the language of where data is and understand how to talk to it in its native formats, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So now let's shift away from a technical conversation to a business conversation. We all want answers, and we do it. What's the capital of the UK?
Yeah.
Thank you for asking, Joe. It's London, right? And increasingly, what's happening is the world is asking questions that don't have neat and tidy answers, and that has to do largely with predicting the future. So in fact, what people really want to know is, what do we think sales are going to be next quarter? What do we think the weather is going to be like tomorrow, right? And this information isn't about finding and retrieving. It's about doing predictive modeling and exposing that predictive model. So from a user interaction perspective, it's about the ability to answer more sophisticated questions with more sophisticated math in a world in which you don't need to know the math. So imagine Google, but with a more sophisticated way of answering that question.
So it's not the data, it's the algorithm, isn't it?
So it is, but you're hopelessly lost to create an algorithm if you don't have that data.
Well, yeah, you can only predict something if you know where you are now.
That's right. Now here's something that might not be obvious to the BI community. the development of an algorithm is very trial and error. Right? So you don't know what data is relevant. So the idea of data availability is to say, I wonder if I combine data set A, B, and C, if I can find a correlation. No, I can't. How about B, D, and E? And so the idea of data availability and data democratization puts things in the hands of people so it doesn't take 6 months to figure out how to fail fast.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the future is algorithms.
Algorithms
with voice.
So, okay, I'll counter that and say one of the worries of this is that we're putting everything into the hands of data scientists. These rare and mythical beasts that lurk around in the bowels of huge organizations. So the end user is then losing the control. They have to wait for the algorithm to be written. It's a big black box. They have no idea what it does. If they want to change it, they've got to go back to the data scientist, and that waits another couple of months, and it's all a big mess.
Yep.
So how do you counter that argument?
So what I would say is there's two ways. So data science can actually be really simple. So if we want to know when the renewal date is for a customer's contract, that's not very complex. There's a single date that you just query for the field. If you want to know what their likelihood is to do, or what campaign, then you might get increasingly more sophisticated. So number one is we have to actually make sure that only the most difficult of questions go to a data science group. And then the other thing that's happening is we need to start at Qlik thinking about the tooling that simplifies that. So for instance, there's a partner of ours, Data Robot.
Yes, I know them.
They do algorithms on demand, and what they do is rather than boring you with the math, they say, I found some math and I found a correlation with these fields. Does that make sense? So I found a customer attrition metric, and it seems to be correlated with shoe size. Well, that certainly doesn't make any sense, right? No. Oh, I found it, and it's correlated with age and duration of. You start to have a business aspect to data science as opposed to a mathematical one. So I think that's how we have to lower the bar for being comfortable. And again, it ties into this Qlik sense of data literacy, right?
Of course, yes.
And that's why I feel like putting on a cozy pair of slippers when I
Nice.
deal with this, because it works beautifully. It's about being comfortable with data and how to use it.
And that's incredibly important, because you can put as much stuff as you want and the best interface, but if people don't understand the data,
that's right.
It's no good, is it, at all?
So can I tell you a funny anecdote about
this? Please do.
So there's a well-tried story about a data scientist who did some work at a mobile carrier, and he found a correlation. They were looking for attrition. And he said, get the board together, I've got the answer, and did a presentation. And he said, I found this field, that when this field flips from N to Y, 96% of customers will leave within 6 months. And a hand went up in the back of the room and said, that's the deceased indicator. So there you go.
There you go.
All the math in the world can't help you with.
And that's very funny, but also that just shows this worry about artificial intelligence, and it's taking over the world, and everyone will lose their jobs, and robots with lasers will come out. You still need,
of course you do,
that side, because a computer would just take that as a fact. That's fascinating. So, Joe, the reason we're doing this Qlik Spotlight is not only to get to know you as far as your work is concerned, but as people all around Qlik can also get to know, who you are, and it's a bit of your private life and what you do. So nothing too deep. So don't worry too much. So once you get home from work or over a weekend or whatever, when you're not working, what relaxes you?
So I live in Boston. I have 2 teenage boys. And I think that those that know me know I don't relax very well.
Oh, really?
I'm quite fidgety. And so what I do to relax is actually, I find that desk jobs don't allow you to work with your hands.
Yeah.
So the thing I want to do on a weekend is plant a garden, build a retaining wall, build a patio, do a lot of home construction projects.
Yeah.
I'm fidgety. I don't sit still very well, but that's what I like to do.
So you're not a meditator or anything like that, then?
I aspire to be, but I don't have the skill.
Your wife will love it, though, because you're around the house building stuff and painting stuff.
That is exactly right.
That's fantastic. So, so this is another thing that you would use your fidgety hands for then. Can you cook? And if you can, do you have a signature dish?
So I cook more or less like a university student. Right. I have very low skills. I make things like breaded chicken breasts and rice pilaf.
Oh,
right?
Well, that's nice.
But there's nothing from the Julia Child cookbook coming my way.
No.
I tend to drown things in cream sauce. So it hides all of the flaws. So it's not healthy to eat in Joe's kitchen. No,
so probably better that you don't spend all your time. Otherwise, in the kitchen, maybe your wife will do something a bit more like steamed broccoli or something.
That's right.
So are you a book or a Kindle person?
Book.
book.
I like the feel of pages, and I feel like I'm modern in most ways, but that one I can't shake. I always have a book in my bag. I read it on the plane, and I like the feel of the page in my hand.
So, did you get the book from our guest speaker?
I
today?
did. The Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And a brilliant film as well. So
Yes.
worth watching. So, okay. Favorite place to holiday? Where do you go on vacation with your family?
Well, first of all, I'm Portuguese by descent. DosSantos is like the Smith of Portugal.
Yes.
And so I love traveling to Europe.
Yeah.
My favorite place to visit is Paris. I am a adorer of all things French. I'm a total Francophile.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Although a recent family trip to Italy has tried to pull my family into the Italian corner. So this is a bit of a controversy in my family.
Yeah, I can imagine. But Italy is beautiful as well, and Europe has so many places to go to. So
More modestly, we often travel up into the New England Lake region for canoeing and hiking and things like that. So
working off all that cream sauce.
That's exactly right.
Exactly what you're saying. So, I've not used this question before. So first time. It's not a new thing, but people have used it. So you've got a chance to have a conversation with someone either dead or alive. Who would that person be?
So this is the week of Martin Luther King's birth, and it got me thinking about that. There's a certain way of communicating, of the things that if we start to think about it, like professionally, what we want to do, we want to explain concepts in a way that inspires and motivates and communicates clearly. No one could do it like he could, right? And the idea is on his mind that it's a good time to kind of stop and reflect and look around the world and see where we are on this journey. So it's fascinating. What was it like then? What is it like now? What would you think? Made a lot of progress with a lot to go. So I've been thinking a lot about Martin Luther King this week.
Yeah, taken so badly as well. Yeah, that was, and he mentioned it in the keynote.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. We come to the end of the questions.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure for me as well. Now I leave people with a fact, and I've picked a fact that is a very Spanish fact. And did you know the first known stapler was made in the 18th century in Spain? And it was for the French King Louis XV, and every single staple was engraved with the royal emblem.
It's a very small emblem.
It's a very small staple. I would have thought. I'll give you one more as well. Also, Spain is famous for inventing the mop and bucket.
That's outstanding.
That.
I would have thought that the paella would be more famous.
Well, you'd have thought so, but no, mop and bucket, 1956. There you go. That's when it was
really
invented. So thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
An absolute pleasure, and I will see you around, no doubt, here. And the people who are watching this, watch out for Joe DosSantos. You're coming to get him.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.